All right, so we're back, and Pastor just had a
Absolutely.
great point he's going to make. Let's continue right there. What were you going to say, Pastor?
Sure. When we're talking about media, that word in and of itself comes from another word, which actually translates to membrane or tunic, which in the fabric, the tunic was technically the fabric in between the outer garment and the skin. And so media actually comes from that definition of being in the middle, that middle piece, that middle layer. And it's important that when we talk about the power of media, we understand that there's someone somewhere that is sending a message that could not be given to us in the raw form in which they wanted to release it. And so there has to be a middle layer. And so now for the news outlet becomes an intermediary for whatever is being said in the White House or whatever was being said at the G8 summit. And if we're not careful, if we don't pay attention to what is being said and how it's being said, if we don't look at it, we're going to always look to the media for the information, not realizing that there's more on the other side of this thing. And going to your point about words, it's important that we can listen to words, because words become a form of media in conversation, right? And it takes emotional intelligence to be able to see through that media, that middle layer, that tunic of what someone is actually feeling, what someone is actually thinking, what someone is actually processing, to be able to identify what is really happening there. And so if we're going to take that idea of media and bring it back to emotional intelligence, and using your point, Paul, concerning words, then words become the music of the heart. Word becomes the music of the mind. And sometimes what's being said is not necessarily in the cadence of what's in the heart, but if we're emotionally intelligent, we can identify what actually was being said at the source, if that makes sense.
Well, you know why that makes so much sense? One of the tools of emotional intelligence is emotional literacy.
Yes, sir.
There are hundreds of words, emotion words, that people don't even realize. There are hundreds of emotion words. And the science says that if you have a larger emotional vocabulary, then you will be able to, not necessarily that you're going to use that vocabulary with others every day, but if you have that vocabulary, you can internally, when you can label your emotions, you're already starting a conversation with the emotional part of your brain and the rational part of your brain. You know?
Yeah.
It's a difference when somebody says I'm sad, and then when they say they're melancholy, it has a different nuance to it. Melancholy, right? Or if you say I'm angry and then you say I'm enraged, there's a different nuance to it. But the fact that I can label and differentiate between enraged and angry, or sad and melancholy, gives me a better. I can start with transforming that feeling, or at least understanding that feeling, and even communicating to someone, hopefully, who might be as emotionally literate, where I'm at. So what you're saying is so powerful with these words, right? And how does media is always using emotion words, not to our best interest. Again, going back to power, the word life.
And if you could, then we also have to now understand that media for our emotion that's not external comes from the things that we've internalized, right? And so if for example, someone has spoken ill of me as a child, I've internalized that language. And what happens is that language becomes how I speak to myself. Right. And so words become the media for our mind. Words become the media for our personal thoughts. And some people, it doesn't matter how well we speak of them, because they're still listening to that media source on the inside, right? There's a dude in the Bible named Job, and he says, the thing that I feared the most has come upon me. And if you're talking about emotional intelligence, he at some point took his self awareness, right? Which is the most important thing, right? The most important thing in EI is that you've got to be self aware, right? You need to be in tune with your inner signals, your personal signals, and you have to recognize how what you're feeling affects what you do. And he now turns around and says, the thing that I fear the most has come upon me. Now, the crazy thing is, if you go read the story of the book of Job, he lost everything. His kids died. He lost his entire fortune. The only thing that remained was his tired, nagging wife by that point in the scripture. And it's like, yo, who thinks like this, right? If you're looking at the scripture from an emotionally intelligent point of view, when you think about it from the EI perspective, it's like, why were you thinking like this?
Wait. Before you go, you're saying why was he fearing losing all that he had? Is that what you're saying? Why was he thinking like that?
The way he lost it, and so. So in chapter 1 and chapter 2, he gets the way it happens is, just for a little Bible history for those who may not know the story. Job was actually considered the most righteous man, the best man in the East, and the story talks about how the devil went to and fro looking for someone to tempt, right? And so God says, "Hey, have you considered my servant Job?" And so all of this was happening, and I'm reading the story from the outside looking in, right? I'm not coming from Job's perspective. I'm just looking from the outside in, and it says that one day all of his cattle, all of his livestock died. And then he lost his servants, and then the house was gone, and it happened literally in a day. Then the children died, and by the time we get to what he's saying in chapter 3, verse 25, he says, "The thing that I fear the most has come upon me." And so, the reason why I say that is, who will think that they're going to lose their house, all their children, and everything that they own that has value in one shot?
Mm.
Well, on top of that, Pastor, you trying, from the EI perspective, they be talking about self-awareness, recognize, being aware of your feelings. That's a whole bunch of feelings to be aware of.
Absolutely. And again, that's what I'm saying. To process all of that in a moment, it's like you're not paying. There's not. He's aware of himself, but then also, one of the things that you have to pay attention to where emotional intelligence is concerned is, having an accurate self-assessment.
Yes.
Right.
And that's what he was having at that point, what you're saying.
No, in essence, he wasn't, because in that he was not, because his self-assessment was based on this whole fear of losing everything. But my position is, why would you assume that this is how you're going to lose everything? So my position is, there had to be some type of internal conversation that he had that made him think that all of these things he had accomplished in his life, he was going to lose it in a tragic way.
Mm-hmm. And you know what's interesting when you mentioned that we talk in emotional intelligence, you want to deal with strategies, right? Awareness strategies.
Yeah.
And self-talk is a very important awareness strategy. And so you're not immune. We're not immune to having negative emotions, or emotions being imposed upon us. Which is what our discussion started with as it pertains to media. But your self-talk is very important, and that also allows for to be able to regulate. We haven't got to the regulate part. We're kind of more talking about perception right now, But when you deal with being aware, what are you aware of? How do you become aware of your emotions? Through your physical states, physiologically, what's taking place. Job must have been experiencing a lot of, just understanding human beings, physical duress and stress. I can't access the story right now. Maybe you could, Pastor, but maybe there's something in there Many times in the Bible, if you hear something like "woe is me," there's certain phrases which kind of say that you're feeling this in your body, in your mind. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
There's certain words that are used that say that it's not just a mental thing, but you feel it in your marrow. And so
I love it.
It's important to be aware of your body. And EI is your information. What is your body feeling when somebody says something to you? We suggest just pausing. Even if somebody says something to you that really makes you feel good, practice just pausing before you even respond.
We're gonna have to
respond,
practice a pause right now, and then we're gonna continue with that in a quick second. All right?
Absolutely.